paravertebral ganglion where it synapses. Then it goes from a gray ramus communicans back to the ventral ramus, and then follows that ventral ramus along the intercostal nerve to the blood vessels. Okay, here's a smooth muscle. This is back to your question. Okay, so here's on the back, something in the middle of the back. Again, it starts off in this intermediate lateral column, goes out the ventral root, goes to the spinal nerve, goes to the ventral ramus, where it generates a white ramus communicans that goes down to that paravertebral ganglion, synapses, takes a gray ramus communicans back to the ventral ramus, back to the spinal nerve, and then up the dorsal ramus to finally get to the middle of the pack. Okay, so that's the nice one. That's something that's going from T6 to T6, and life is wonderful. But there are other issues here, right? Because if the pregangliotics only come from T1 to L2, but you need sympathetic innervation all the way up and down the column because you've got blood vessels and stuff out there, and you've got pelvic organs and all sorts of stuff that doesn't happen to lie, physically at T1 or L2, they may get their innervation from cervical nerves or may get their innervation from sacral nerves. Where do their preganglionic sympathetics come from? Okay, well, so some things, so the heart, for example, okay, where are we? Okay, so here's one coming out of here at the lateral horn, goes out the ventral ramus, goes into the spinal nerve, ventral root, into the ventral ramus, goes down to the ganglion right here, synapses, and can send a postganglionic straight out to this heart muscle. Then there are some real screwy ones. In the abdomen, they can do different things. They can come down here. Well, we'll get to that later. Some of them may, for other structures, may come out here and travel all the way up before they synapse at a higher level, and then go back and go out. Things that are above T1 or T6 can ascend to another ganglia. So you got a white ramus. You have a white ramus coming into this level, travel up the sympathetic trunk. So this is all the sympathetic trunk. Synapse at C1, and then send postganglionics out at an upper cervical level. Because all the sources have to be in this middle area, but there can be gray rami at all. There are gray rami from all levels. So things that are above T1 have to travel up this trunk, and they have the white rami are going to go all the way up. Synapse here, the gray ramus is going to come out at every level. So there's a gray ramus at every spinal level, but there are only 14 white rami. Okay, I know that's, yeah. I'm surprised we don't have 44 hands. Okay, yes.
The one, like the chain is going up, is that considered white or gray? Like gray rami?
It would still be white because it goes into there and then travels up the corner. And that, in answer to your question, is why the ganglia are not the sympathetic trunk. The sympathetic trunk consists of the ganglia plus these fibers that are going up and down to other levels. So when you look at it, you don't see blob, 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 blob. You see blob with some stuff connecting it to the blob below, to the blob above. So that the trunk is the highway that these things, so everything's not coming out of the spinal cord, synapsing, and going out the rami. Some of them are traveling up. So what you see is a highway with different ganglia, sort of way stations along the way. That's why it's a trunk and not just a series of little round things from top to bottom. Does that make any sense? This is going to go on forever. I mean, we've got lots of pictures of this. But yes.
So if it's not between T1 and L2, then there's no...
I'm sorry?
If it's not between T1 and L2, then there's no white...
There is no white ramus communicans.
Okay.
But at every level, from top to bottom, there is a gray ramus coming out and going with a gray ramus communicans coming out of the ganglia and going into
Whatever it needs to go.
wherever it needs to go. Yes?
So in order to get to the heart, so this is what I'm confused about. So to get to the heart, you have to go up to the cervical?
They go up to cervicals and then they come down. And why that wasn't drawn here, I have no idea.
Okay, I was making sure.
That's not a very good drawing. I suddenly realized I don't want to talk about this drawing, but it was already done. We'll see that later. Okay.
Wait, there's one more question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait, so you said that the sympathetic chain is considered part of the white rami?
It is made up of white rami, which are going to synapse somewhere above or somewhere below. And the gray rami are what's going to come out of that and go into spinal nerves. Yes, ma'am.
So there's no lateral horn outside of the T1 and the L2?
Right.
Ooh, okay.
The lateral horn is where preganglionic sympathetics come from. Yes?
The grayed out stuff about the flange, I don't even know how to pronounce that nerve. This flash.
Yeah?
Yeah. You have to know that?
I'll be there in a minute. Okay. So here's the same thing again. Okay. Synapse, blah, 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 sympathetics to the body wall, thoracic cavity. Synapse and go to habex dermatomes through the dorsal ramus and habex dermatomes. So this is going to the body wall. Okay, so this one's coming in here. I don't know why they drew that. Never mind. Okay, so some of them can come out here, go in a white ramus, synapse there, and then go out. That's what they were just showing, and then go out to the body wall. The other thing they can do is the preganglionics can come out here, go into or into this ganglia, and then travel up the sympathetic trunk to a higher level, synapse there, and send a gray ramus out. Or, because you need sympathetics in the sacral region, something from T6 or T8 or T10 can come out here, send a white ramus in, and travel down the cord and synapse at S1 or S2. And somewhat soon we're going to get to a summary of all the different things. Okay, so.
Can I ask a quick question about the previous photo?
You can.
I thought that the white rami were
That
the
one?
ones that jump up. So it's ascending without synapse.
Right.
Is that just going directly to a structure? It's not necessarily going to.
No, it's going to a ganglion.
Okay, within that
That
region.
you can't, the sympathetics do not go to structures until after they have synapse. It's only the postganglionics that can go to well, in general.
So what happens? Does it synapse at the paravertebral ganglion
Yes.
and the white rami jumps up?
The
I'm
white, so
confused.
for say heart. Okay, the preganglionics will come out at say T2.
Okay.
Go out the ventral ramus. Go into the spinal cord. Go out the ventral root. Go into the spinal cord. Go into the ventral ramus. Go down to with a white ramus into this, or where this ganglia is, not synapse there. Travel up the chain until it gets to somewhere in the cervical region. Synapse in a ganglion there, and then go out with a cervical nerve to the heart.
Okay.
So it's the white ramus that
That is traveling up. Yes, it's the white rami are preganglionic. So it's the preganglionic stuff that goes up the trunk. And then after it's synapsed, it goes from wherever it's synapsed in one of these ganglia, somewhere up and down the spinal cord, all the way from top to bottom. The gray ramus will go into one of these and go to wherever it's going to go.
So
Yes.
if it was in like that T1 to L2 region, then it would go through the gray rami. But if it was outside, that's when it would go through the white rami.
No, white rami are anything that's coming from the spinal cord going to the sympathetic trunk.
Right.
Yes, and then if it's going to come back to that same level, or if it's from whatever ganglion it synapses, the gray ramus takes it from the ganglion to the nerve that's going to the structure that's being innervated. So gray rami go from ganglia to the part of the body, the organ, the whatever. white rami go from the central nervous system to a ganglion. Help. God. Okay, yes.
So I remember I saw a slide where to reach the heart, like some of them synapse like cervical
Yes.
ganglia.
Right.
But there were some that synapse at like normal levels. And
Yes.
So
So they can go from lots of different, they can get there in several different ways.
is it fixed? Which ones go up to cervical?
I do not know.
Um,
But if you trace these out, some of them come from cervical, some of them come from lower, and I don't know what's going where, quite frankly. I'm sure if you map them out embryologically, you can see how these things slide up and down. Yes?
So above T1 and below L2, is there a white ramus communicating?
There's no white ramus going into the ganglion. No, the preganglionics are traveling down the sympathetic trunk.
So you just need the gray, not the white.
There'll be a gray coming out at every level where they synapse, but there'll be nothing going in. So if you see a ganglion at L4, it'll only have one little connection going back into that ventral ramus, because the preganglions got there by traveling down the trunk.
Above T1 below L2, are they still called paravertebral ganglion, even though they're not the white?
They're still next to the vertebrae. So yes, a ganglion next to the vertebrae that contains synapses of sympathetic nerves is a paravertebral ganglion, regardless of whether it's lying next to it, has a white ramus coming into it or not. Yes, ma'am.
Do you want us to put like the region, like you know how you have some cervical paravertebral ganglia, or can we just call it paravertebral ganglia? Or do we have to see cervical?
In the cervical region, that you don't have the individual ones, right? You have middle and superior and inferior. So you should give them their names. Okay. Okay. So there are 6 different connections. Okay. At a paravertebral ganglion. This is what we've been talking about. Everybody's raised their hand and tried to come up with a different example, a different way in which these things can be wired. Okay. Gray ramus communicans. There is a gray ramus communicans coming out of every ganglion at every spinal level, because those postganglionics have to go to all the smooth muscle in the body, which includes all the blood vessels, in addition to sweat glands and miscellaneous viscera. So at every spinal level, from C1 all the way down, there is a gray ramus communicans for sympathetic fibers to get out of the ganglion and go to the body via a spinal nerve. Okay, that's easy. White rami communicans, which are carrying preganglionics, only exist between T1 and L2, because that's the only source of preganglionics. Okay, at any spinal level, there are likely to be some fibers that are not synapsing there, but are going to a higher level to synapse. So these are the ascending fibers, or they're going down. Okay, or they could be going down. So the ascending fibers can be found most anywhere except the superior cervical, because there's nowhere to go. They don't go into the brain. Descending fibers can be descending fibers coming down, except in the coccyx, because nothing below that. Okay. Nerves to thoracic viscera. Okay. They are coming. They are coming from C1 through T5 in various different ways. Obviously, C1 is not having any white rami communicans, but there are connections in the ganglia. And then there are these crazy things called splanchnic nerves, which you've seen here. And splanchnic nerves are preganglionics that come out, have a white ramus, go into a paravertebral ganglion, but don't do anything. And so the preganglionics continues past that ganglion, runs all the way down into the abdomen, and its synapse is in another ganglion which is lying in front of the aorta in the abdomen. Just to make life, just for something else.
Wait, yeah, repeat the entire
Okay.
thing.
Someone asked about splanchnic nerves. Okay, most of the stuff we've seen so far well, all the stuff, preganglionic have to come T1 to L2. Most of the ones we've seen will either synapse at that level, go up in synapse, so the postganglionics go to the organs, like you saw in thorax, or go down and synapse at a lower vertebral level, so the gray rami will come out and go to the organs. The big exceptions are in the lower part of the thoracic region. There are preganglionics that, you know, they have a white ramus going into T5, but instead of synapsing at the paravertebral ganglia, they pass through that, go all the way down into the abdomen, and when they get to the abdomen, they synapse basically around a blood vessel. And so the postganglionics follow the blood vessels to the organs. That's the one exception of preganglionics that don't synapse in paravertebral vertebrae. Is that perfectly obscure? So we've told you that all of these things have to go up to a ganglia, you know, and they can synapse anywhere. They can synapse it in cervical, they can synapse in thoracic, they can synapse in sacral, and then send their postganglionics out. The one group of preganglionics that do not synapse in these paravertebral ganglia are the things that are going to abdominal and pelvic structures. They pass through. The preganglionics say, well, I'm going to go to the ganglion, ha ha ha, but I'm not going to stop here, and they go all the way down. And I could tell you why I think that's true, but it doesn't really matter. Just it is true. Yes?
So between T1 and T5, sometimes the nerves will synapse in the paravertebral ganglia, sometimes they won't.
Well, they will always synapse in a paravertebral ganglion, but sometimes it might not be the one that the white ramus may come out of T3 and not synapse till C7. So it can travel up, the preganglionic can travel up, synapse at the ganglia at C5 or C4, and then go out with a gray ramus with a cervical nerve. Well, that's why, like I said, that's why this is a chain. Some of this stuff is not synapsing where it comes out. It's going up or it's going down, because all those things need postganglionics.
Between T1 and T5, right? They could synapse there. There are also nerves for thoracic viscera that don't synapse there.
Yes, they could go up into the cervical region, synapse, and then come back down. Yes?
When it goes up or down, does it stop at every paravertebral?
Yeah, I don't.
Or can it just?
I don't know whether it goes around or through. It doesn't stop. It doesn't.